And good evening, District 71 and fellow Toastmasters from all around the world, and indeed all of our guests. It's wonderful to have you here with us this evening. You are joining us for a very special occasion when we have none other than the World Champion 2021 of public speaking in our midst, Miss Verity Price. And Verity is going to give us a 35-minute presentation followed by a Q&A session after we have been entertained by our poet in residence, Anya O'Neill. It's going to be a wonderful hour, and I'd invite you all to sit back, relax and enjoy it. And don't forget not to be shy to ask Verity any questions in the Q&A session. So as I said, before we hear from Verity, we're going to hear from our wonderful poet in residence in District 71, Miss Anya O'Neill. So fellow Toastmasters, please put your hands together and welcome Anya to the stage. Anya, over to you.
Thank you very much, Eileen, and good evening, everyone. This poem is called The Lexicon Tree, and it's about the power and importance of words and how they can enrich all of our lives. Words hop from the page, as birds in flight they go, gliding through the air, their destination yet unknown. They move from my lips, a rich tapestry of choice. They duck and they dive on the wave of my voice. Then gliding towards my ear and lodging in my brain, they've reached their home, like a slowing train, until of course they take flight again, enriched this time by my flowing pen. Words are so much more than writing on a page. Their use helps inspire the young, the old, the sage. They have the power to wound or heal, to clinch a moment, to make us feel. Choose your fruit from the lexicon tree, then use your voice to set their hearts free. Thanks very much, everyone. Back to you now, Eileen.
Anya, thank you so much for that, and so relevant to our Toastmasters experience. It reminded me of the word master role at all of our meetings, where we're all challenged to use words that we don't normally hear in everyday language. And it's exactly that, a lexicon and the bounce off the page. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to hand you over to Sue Burnett. Sue is going to introduce our special speakers for this evening, Verity Price. Sue, over to you.
Thank you, Eileen. Ladies and gentlemen, and Verity, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you this evening. So I will introduce Verity, we'll have a short video, and then we'll be over to Verity for her speech. Verity is someone who approaches life a little differently. She's gone from walking 12,000 kilometers across France and Spain in hiking boots in the memory of her parents, to performing in high heels, to packed houses in Nashville and New York. From not having the money to record her debut album, to becoming one of the world's first online crowdfunders. From being terrified of speaking in public, to being crowned the 2021 World Champion of Public Speaking. She is all about facing fears, finding your voice and sharing your truth. As a Toastmasters 2021 World Champion, Verity captured the judges and thousands of people's imagination with her winning speech, A Good Read. An inspiring invitation to improve our lives by writing a different story. Helping people do just that is Verity's passion, and today she is here to help us to do that. Please put your hands together for Verity Price.
Thank you so much. Wow, what a beautiful, beautiful introduction, and so lovely to be with you all this evening. I must say I wish that I was with you in person, because South Africa, or where I am, the Western Cape, just got registered as the hottest place on the planet today. We are 40 degrees at 8 o'clock in the evening. So if at any point during my speech I stop making sense, one of two things have happened. My brain has either completely melted or my computer is melted. I will leave it up to you to decide what has happened, but I'm gonna try keep it together, because my son has the only fan in the house. So I'm gonna keep myself cool as we go. So wonderful to be with you, District 71, and I'm so excited to spend this little bit of time with you. I'd love it if the chat could be activated. I don't know if that's a possibility, because I like to ask questions and I love to see people's responses, just so we get a sense that we're together in this. And so if the chat can be activated, that would be great. And if you're happy to use the chat, please do just respond so that we can really have a conversation this evening. Because I'm here to share with you a little bit of my journey to becoming the world champion of public speaking, and the roller coaster it took me on, the lessons that it taught me, and what I'm hoping turns out to be 4 really simple steps for you to write your next winning speech. Okay, so whether you want to win the World Championship of Public Speaking, or win the lottery, or just win a raffle, I don't mind what it is. I just want to know, do you enjoy winning? Who here likes the idea of winning? And let's just see some yeses and some me's and some whoops, I love winning in the chat. Let's see the chat come. So I just know that you're with me. And yes, I see Venice coming in saying yes. Anyone else? I love winning. Yes. Okay. So me. Okay. So we've got people who enjoy winning. And, you know, it sounds great. It's so good to win, isn't it? So I want to share with you a short story of a man who loved the idea of winning. But the thing he wanted to win most was the lottery. And so every Saturday night, he would sit in front of his television screen and he would watch those numbers being drawn, and he wouldn't win. The next Saturday night, he would come back and he'd be like, this is my night, this is my night. And he wouldn't win. And Saturday after Saturday after Saturday, he would watch those numbers be drawn and he would not win. So eventually, one Saturday, in desperation, he looked up at the sky and he said, why? Why do you never let me win? And a voice came down from above and said, you might want to buy a ticket. So my fellow Toastmasters and friends, in March of last year, I bought my ticket. I put my name in the hats of the Toastmasters International Speech Contest, and I took a chance to see where it could take me. There was no guarantee that I was going to win. And unlike the lottery, the Toastmasters contest takes a lot of hard work. But I was prepared to be up for the growth, and I was up for the journey, and I wanted to give it my all. And in August of 2021, I heard those life-changing words that the next world champion of public speaking is Verity Price. I'm still pinching myself. I can't pretend I'm not. It still seems surreal. And to think this all happened in lockdown. But the journey it took me on was life-changing. And what I need to share with you was this wasn't the first time I entered the International Speech Contest. I'd entered when I was a young Toastmaster in 2012, but I entered with the wrong mindset. I entered with the mindset of, I'm quite a confident speaker. I don't really need to prepare. I'll write a speech the day before the contest. Hey, I might win. My sister entered with the mindset of, this looks like hard work. I'm a nervous speaker. Let me really work on my speech. And she beat me. And she didn't just beat me at club. She then went on to win the area, the division. She became the 3rd woman to ever become a district champion in Southern Africa. And in August of 2012, I watched online as she competed in the semifinals, and for the first time in 6 months, came second to a young man named Ryan Avery, who 2 days later became the world champion of public speaking. Watching my sister Kay's journey made me realize this contest takes dedication. It takes determination. It takes a lot of effort. There are challenges. You've got to find the right speech. You've got to be open to feedback. You've got to be prepared to put in effort. You've got to be open to learning from the success of others. And if you don't come with that mindset to a contest like this, you can have fun at the early levels, but at the top levels, you have to be 100% committed. And so after seeing that was what went into this contest in 2012, I just never competed again. Every year I had a reason. Oh, I'm busy that month. I don't have a story. I'm not really good at this style of speaking. You might have had this experience when it comes to contests. We have a lot of reasons why we don't put our names in the hats. And so I just put it off and I put it off and I put it off. I mentored other speakers. I encouraged other people to compete, but I didn't put my name in the hat. Once in 2015, I kind of entered again and gave it my best, and I got as far as my division and I came third. And then for 6 years, I just sat back and I watched the contest, always wondering, I wonder how I might have done if I'd entered. So what changed? Why did I enter last year? Well, one thing changed. I suddenly had the right speech. I wrote a speech for a club meeting in November of 2020, and after I delivered it, I thought that is a speech that could win. And then a little voice said, and you might become the world champion of public speaking. I kind of looked around, I was like, what, me, world champion? But there was the seed of possibility that was planted inside of me. And I thought, if I don't put my name in the hat, if I don't buy the ticket, I will never know. And so unlike the lottery, this contest only guarantees one person wins, and it's not based on luck, it is based on hard work. But it guarantees every other Toastmaster who enters the opportunity to grow. I really want you to think about it, because what I've realized is if you enter this contest to win, that is not the right reason to enter. But if you enter it to grow, you will get all the value that a Toastmasters contest can give you. And so really bear in mind, this year there will be one winner, but everyone else who enters, if they enter with the right intention, they will be guaranteed the growth that comes with it. And so you just have to ask yourself, am I going to buy the ticket? A lot of you said you like to win. So if you do like winning, then buy your ticket, but buy it with the intention of going, I'm here to grow. And that is the ultimate win. That is the ultimate gift that it's going to give you. And so that's what I really want to speak about, is the gift that it gives you, this journey of writing a speech and the gift that it gives you. So I'm imagining, we've just had Christmas, so I don't think I'm alone in enjoying receiving gifts. Yeah, you can just see a few of you. I can see Eileen, is it Elaine? Eileen. I'm saying I can't even read in this heat. I see some people smiling. I'm assuming you love receiving gifts. There's something amazing about getting a beautifully wrapped package and slowly unwrapping it, going, what's inside here? So in our family, Christmas is our favorite time of year because we love giving gifts and we love receiving gifts. But a few years ago, we realized that, hang on, we spend a lot of money in December. We spend way too much time in the shops buying things people don't need. Let's change things up a bit. And so we decided to have what we call a white elephant Christmas. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a white elephant. Some people are familiar, some people aren't. Some people think it's an animal. It's not an animal. A white elephant is that thing that you have that you never use, that thing that's kind of become obsolete. So it could have been a gift that someone gave you or something you bought for yourself in a moment of excitement. And it's actually just sat on the back of a shelf or at the top of a cupboard, and you keep meaning to use it, but you never do. So our Christmas idea was every person that came to our Christmas dinner had to wrap one gift, and it needed to be a white elephant, but they needed to wrap it as spectacularly as they could so that everyone else would want to get one. And there was this high sense of curiosity and anticipation as the dinner approached, and everyone arrived with these beautifully wrapped gifts. And they were big and small, but all of them were intriguing. All of them had our curiosity aroused. And suddenly there was a bit of a tussle going on as to who was going to get what gift, only to discover that we were unwrapping, you know, a novelty coffee cup that someone got on their travels, or a never opened cookbook, or my absolute favorite, a rusty hamster cage. It literally, someone had gone into the back of their garage and said, this is what I'm wrapping. We laughed until we cried. But the thing that struck me was that the longer it took people to unwrap the gift, to pull at the ribbon and try and get that tape unstuck and pull the paper away, and the more they enjoyed unwrapping it and trying to guess what was inside, the more likely they were to love what they found. I got the novelty coffee cup, and I looked at it and I was like, wow, I'm going to turn this into a pot plant holder. My brother-in-law's bachelor best friend got the unused cookbook, and he looked at it and went, I'm going to impress my next date. And my cousin got the rusty hamster cage. And she looked through the bars and said, you won't believe it. This is exactly what I need. My daughter just said she wants a hamster. So you might be wondering, why is the world champion of public speaking telling us about her crazy Christmases? What has this got to do with speech writing? And I'll tell you. In the 10 years or 11 years this year that I've been a Toastmaster, and in the 7 months it took me last year to win the world championship, my biggest realization was that a speech is a gift you give the audience. A speech is a gift that you give your audience. It's not about you, it's about them. And the more fun they have unwrapping that speech with you, trying to imagine what is the gift inside, which is essentially your message, the more likely they are to look at it and go, how can I take this home and how can I make it meaningful to me? And so that's what I want to share with you today, is how do we ensure when we speak, and this is outside of contests, this is anytime you speak, at Toastmasters, at work, in life, how do we ensure that when we communicate, our communication is a gift that we give to our audience? Because I truly believe if every speaker brings that intention to the way they write a speech, they might transform the way people receive their message. And what's important to note is a great speech doesn't have to revolve around a great story. It might revolve around a white elephant moment or memory in your life that has been shoved at the back of a shelf or the top of a cupboard. It's been gathering dust. You haven't thought about that thing that happened when you were in primary school, or that one time on a train, or that time that things went wrong at a Christmas dinner. You might not have thought of them for years. But as you're starting to work on a speech, you might kind of take that little moment and dust it off and go, wow, if I wrap this really beautifully, if I made my audience intrigued, maybe this could be a winning speech. And so here's where the choice comes in, because there's always a choice how you wrap a gift, whatever the gift is. You could wrap it like this. Sorry, we've lost my camera. I will come back. You could wrap it like this. Say, here you go. Put it in a bag. Merry Christmas, happy birthday, whatever it is. So you could wrap it like this, or you could wrap it. Just waiting for my camera to come back on track. We've got some camera issues here. There we go. You could wrap it like this. Okay, so really draw them in, get them interested to find out what's inside. That is always your choice. If you are really boring, you could wrap it like this. Let them know upfront exactly what's coming. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I would not want to receive my gift wrapped like this. And sometimes as Toastmasters, we do this in our title. Someone doesn't even have to listen to our speech. The title's already told them what's coming. Okay, so please don't wrap your speeches like this. You can do it like this, or you can do it like this. So maybe let's pop in the chat. Which would you prefer to receive? If I was giving you a gift right now, would you want the bag or the box? So just put in bag or box. Which one would you like to receive if I was giving these gifts to you right now? Box from Mara, box from Venice, box, 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 box. I see lots of boxes coming through. Yes, okay. The box. I see some people are intrigued. What is inside the box? The box is beautiful. Thank you. Exactly. That is what a great speech should look like. It doesn't actually matter what's inside. You just go, wow, you spent a lot of time wrapping this. I think I'm going to like it. Okay, so let's look at why that is and how you can make people want to unwrap the gifts that you create for them when you speak. So for me, I've realized there's 3 things that you are wanting to create in your audience the moment you start speaking. And if you are creating these 3 things, you are going to be having the success you want as a speaker, because people are going to be hanging on every word. So let's look at what those are. And they're 3 very simple things, but they're very important. Number 1, you want to create curiosity. The box creates curiosity. It makes people go, what's inside? Okay, so curiosity as a speaker, and especially in Toastmasters, you can create as early as your title. Your title is where you can make people go, I wonder what this is about. And you've already got your audience leaning in. Now, I always think it's useful to look at previous world champions to see if what I'm saying makes sense. And if you look at the last couple of years, some of the titles we've had, The Librarian and Mrs. Montgomery, I don't know about you, but I'm interested. Things like Changed by Attire, I See Something in You, The Ultimate Question, they make you go, wow, and The Most Unbelievable Story. You can go back and look through world champion speeches and go, wow, they were creating curiosity as early as they could. So look at your title and go, is this intriguing? Is this making people lean in and wanting to open up to what I have to say? And then through your speech, you have opportunities to create curiosity by saying things, and then do you know what happened? And pausing. Or telling a whole story, but not quite revealing what's happened, and then landing it. But always look for moments to keep your audience curious. Now, if you've got them curious, that's half the battle won. And the next thing you want to do, and this is crucial, especially when you're speaking to an international audience, you want to create connection. When we speak, we're not only speaking to one part of the audience, we want to speak to as many people in our audience as we can. Men, women, different ages, races, religions, cultures. And we do that by speaking about universally connecting emotions and experiences. So whether you're touching on being humiliated or striving for a dream but not quite getting there, or big hopes for the future, these are things that every human being has experienced. And so you want to make sure you create those moments of connection throughout your speech, and that the scenarios you paint, people can identify with them. If you watch my world champion speech, right in the beginning, I spoke of an image of me sitting on my father's knee, listening to him reading to me as a young child. That is a pretty universal experience. It creates quick connection with your audience. So look for those moments of connection. If you create curiosity and connection, I guarantee you, you will get the 3rd thing that we all are looking for as speakers, is commitment. Commitment to our message, going, I feel connected, I've loved this process, I'm taking home what you've said for me. So 3 little C's to look for when you're writing your next speech, and get other people to give you feedback and go, did this make you curious? You know, can you connect to what I'm talking about? Or is this just me? Or is this just women, or just men, or just my age range? And then see if you can change your speech a little bit to make it more universally accessible. That will create the commitment that you want to your message. Okay, so those are the 3 things. Now, how do we do that? How do we make sure all of that's happening? And this is where I want to share with you, in the little bit of time that I've got, what I kind of distilled after winning the World Championship were my 4 steps that helped me write my winning speech. And I'm hoping if you look at these 4 steps, you'll be able to apply them to any speech you write, but especially if you are thinking of entering the contest, you can hopefully use them to help guide your thinking through your speech writing. And I'm going to unpack it under this idea of a gift. So I'm going to take us through the G, the I, the F, and the T. So hopefully it makes it really easy for you to remember. So the G for me is, and the number 1 most important step, is you have to get clear on your message. Great speeches have got great messages. That is the ultimate gift that your audience takes home, because that's what they apply to their own life. And what I heard, and I'm not sure which world champion might have said this many years ago, but it's always stuck with me, is if you enter this contest and you make the finals, you have got 7 minutes to speak to the world. So ask yourself when you're working on a speech, regardless of if you go into the finals or not, just say, if I could speak to the entire world for 7 minutes, what is the message I would want to give? and then sit with that and distill it. An ideal message is 10 words or less. It's the idea of, it was Diane Boyer that said that if you can't say your message in a sentence, you are not going to be able to say it in an hour. I really want you to think about that. If you can't say your message in a sentence, you will not be able to say it in an hour. So find a short, punchy way to say your message statement. And again, previous world champions are really good to look at. The victory is in the try. Do you validate? Reach out. I see something in you. Words have power. I mean, there's so many we can look at. They're short, they're punchy, they are action statements. And you'll notice that they repeat them through their speech numerous times. You don't just say it once at the end. You introduce it quite early, and then you find different ways of repeating it. If you watch my world champion speech, you'll see my message first comes from reading a letter. I then say it seconds later by resisting the message, by going, oh, come on, Dad, how do I write a different story? I then look at Facebook and no one's got good stories. Then the message, the letter talks to me. I'd send my message statement within 3 times in less than 30 or 40 seconds. So once you've got that message statement that you are excited by, that you go, this is what I want to say, find different ways to introduce it without the audience feeling like you're saying, this is what you should do. So if it's unfolding in your story, through dialogue, through questioning, through reflection, that is much easier for them to access. I maybe need to put this out there. It is not easy to get clear on our message. You might have an extraordinary story, but you might have to keep coming back to going, what am I actually saying here? What is the core message? And the reason I know that is I worked on my world champion speech for 100 days. And my message of write a different story came 10 days before the final. I went through 5 different message statements over the first 90 days. I had get grateful, be happy, look for the good in your life, change the way you look at things. But I kept getting feedback that it wasn't landing for everyone. It wasn't creating connection. And 10 days before the final, I landed on write a different story. My whole speech changed. So you might need to spend a lot of time on this step, and you might need to come back to it many times. Your initial message statement might not be your strongest. Okay, so that's the first step, and the crucial step for having a speech that is a gift is get clear on your message. The next step is where your speech craft comes in, is you have to intentionally craft your story, because whatever story you're telling, it could have been a small white elephant moment from your life that had a big life lesson in it. How you tell that story is going to decide whether you land your message, win or not. Okay, so the way, a simple way to think of how we intentionally craft a story is a few steps that I'm going to take you through. Firstly, you've got to put your audience right into a setting, a time and place that your hero is in, and you want to very quickly establish what is the obstacle they're facing. So we can do that by building tension, making them curious. If you have watched my speech, or if you're going to watch it, you'll see that I start right at the beginning with, I'm on my dad's knee. I love listening to fairy tales. I want a fairy tale. I'm 40. My life is not a fairy tale. And now I'm in the spare room, feeling sorry for myself, eating ice cream and watching Netflix. Took about 30 seconds to create a setting, and people knew who the hero was and what the obstacle was I was facing. So you want to really make sure that you set that setting up quickly, and it's easy for people to visualize. Now they can see where your hero is struggling. You want to escalate that a little bit. So you want to build the tension by adding a few more stumbling blocks in. I ran into a friend whose life was amazing and I felt terrible. I got home and my room was a mess. And I was really trying to get the audience into just how stuck I was. Because by then they connected. They're going, curiously, how is she going to solve this? And also, I want you to solve this. I don't want you to be stuck. And that's the point. You introduce the thing that is going to resolve your problem. I like to think of that as a guru or a mentor. But the important thing is that that thing or person is not you. We cannot be the guru of our own story. The wisdom needs to come from an external force. It is much easier for the audience to take it on if we're taking it on and we're not preaching at them. In my case, my dad was the guru and the letter was the messenger. And I got this message, you know, your life is a book. And if you're not enjoying the read, write a different story. My message was there. And then I struggled with that. I toyed with it because that's what we do as human beings. So you want to keep that tension of how you're going to resolve the problem. And only right at the end does your main point land with the audience where you give them a call to action. But if you have transformed through the telling of your story, and if people have loved the tension and felt that drama and the feelings and the emotions, and they've seen that you're transforming, they will naturally transform with you. So tell your story from your perspective, show how you've applied the lesson in your life, and only right at the end, make a point to the audience. I know this is a lot that I'm putting in here. I've got longer workshops where I can unpack this, but it's just to bring that intentionality of storytelling, going, am I interested reading this? Am I interested hearing this? And if the answer is yes, then keep writing it. If it's not quite right, shorten your sentences, use more vivid words, see where you can use dialogue to make that story engaging to hear and make it feel like this for your audience, feel like it's interesting to unwrap versus whatever. Okay, so that's what we want to do around intentionally crafting our stories. All right. So the fourth step that was a game changer for me, and honestly is the reason I think I am the world champion currently, is you need to fill in the gaps for your audience. You know your story. They've never heard your story before. They're going to have things they need, and you've got to ask them. So you need to be open to feedback. And in my journey to becoming world champion, I visited 42 clubs in 16 countries and received so many Google form feedback from more than 200 Toastmasters. It was overwhelming, but it allowed me to shift and change my speech so that I could, I'll put my bad camera on so that at least I'm back, so that at least I could make sure that when I was speaking, my audience, and most importantly, my judges, would have no questions. So people saying things like, I love your story, but I'm in my 60s and you turned your life around at 40. What about me? I went back to my speech and I went, I can add in that my dad was 60 when his life turned upside down. I can add in a phrase, it doesn't matter what chapter of your life you're in. But if I hadn't asked my audience, I wouldn't have known that I was alienating members of my audience with my story. And so you have to ask them, what are the gaps? What didn't make sense? What do you need more of? What do you need less of? And here you need to have some humility. Sometimes you need to trust this is the bit I want to tell. And other times you have to shift what you're saying. So really do ask people, even if it's just for club level, even if it's just for a club speech or a presentation you're doing at work, find some safe people that are different to you, because you also want some diversity. Do it to an opposite gender, opposite race, different age, and ask them, what's missing in this presentation? And then have the humility and the courage to go and shift and tweak your presentation so that you are writing it for them. Because at the end of the day, it is for them because it's a gift for your audience. So really give yourself permission to fill in the gaps for the audience. It's something I think we forget to do sometimes as speakers. And the last step is to tie it all together. And this again is a speech craft part. When you look at what you've written, are there loose ends? And I see this sometimes. I see beautiful speeches, but they've started on half a story and then they've gone here and they've done there. And by the time they conclude, I'm still wondering, but what about that thing you mentioned? So this is where it's crucial to write simple but profound stories, where it's short sentences, vivid words, not too many characters, not too many story plots. You want to follow one clear line so that by the time you're concluding, you're able to tie back every single thing you've said in your speech into your conclusion. And I'll use my speech again. I'm hoping most of you have seen it, but if you haven't, maybe go and watch it and then this will make more sense. But if you watch my speech, as I reach my conclusion, I say, do you know what I've realized? Fairy tales are great to read to my son. My opening line was, my father used to read fairy tales to me. I then move on to, but if my life is a book, which is what my dad's letter said, I need to decide if it's being written for me or by me, which was actually my ultimate point of the whole speech. And then I go on to now giving to the audience But if you're looking for a change, you're ready for a new chapter, or you fancy a miracle, and those are 3 phrases I'd said at other times in the speech, I then end on my final message, which is pick up your pen and write a different story. But my last line was a tie back all the way to my title. And I looked at the screen and I said, trust me, if you do this, your life will make for a great read. And when I decided on that final line, and I'd tied it all the way back to my title, I knew that my speech was complete. I knew that I was really handing over a gift that was totally up to the audience and to the listener, whether they wanted to take it home. But I knew I'd done my job. I'd wrapped it intentionally. I'd gotten so clear on my message. I'd made sure I'd asked my audience what they were looking for from me, because it wasn't about me. The speech was for them. And then I tied it all together so that I could finish strong. So I know it's a lot to take in, but I really hope that it just gives you a slightly different way to think about writing speeches, to go, this is not about me. This is about my audience. This is about creating a gift for them in 4 very simple steps, where I get clear on the message. I intentionally craft my story so it is a delight to listen to, and it keeps them curious and connected all the way through so that they want to commit to my message. I make sure I check in with my potential audience to fill in their gaps. And then when I look at the way I've written my speech, I tie it all together. If you do that, it doesn't matter about the speech contest. It doesn't matter where you place. You will grow as a speaker. And amazing if, someone gets to bring this back. But what I can tell you about this, and as wonderful as it is, it's just a trophy. The growth is what is going to last with me for the rest of my life. So I really hope that you will take what I've said and give yourself permission to pick up your pen, write your winning story, and put your name in the hat. Buy your ticket, see where it takes you, get the growth that comes with it. Because the one thing I realized last year was that when it comes down to chasing your dreams, when it comes down to trying to do something that's meaningful and moving for you, you'd be crazy not to give it your all. You'd be crazy not to try. And so I really hope that those of you who are thinking of entering this year do put your name in the hats. And it's not a lottery. Good luck with the hard work. But I really hope that these 4 steps will help you to write that speech that is the speech you want to give to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Verity, for an amazing speech. Now, I think we're going to see another video now, so I'm going to hand over to Nick to share the closing video, and then we'll go to the Q&A.
Maybe I'm crazy thinking that this might work. Maybe I'm crazy wanting something that might hurt. Maybe it's madness to start something that might end. Maybe it's easier to just not begin. Now maybe delusional, believing this stands a chance when so many before have proved that good things don't last. Seems a little bit naive to step in anyway, but I'd be crazy if I didn't take a step around the corner, confronting all that I don't know, the storms that I might weather, the times of being out of control, not having all the answers was never a reason not to try. What if the right brothers hadn't believed that they could fly? Believed that they could fly. I'd be crazy not to try.
Thank you. And if you do sign up for my newsletter, there is a little surprise gift of that song as well. So little booklet to help you write a winning speech, and that song is a bonus.
Thank you very much, Verity. And I think you'll see from around the room and the comments that have been put up in chat that every one of us was hanging on to your every word there. I'm really interested in seeing what questions people have for you now as we hand over to our moderator for today, Jenny Chalmers, who's going to host a Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Verity. I have to ask you, first of all, what white elephant did you wrap?
Oh gosh, I've done a few, so that is such a good question. I think mine was a collection of books that I wrapped that I'd not got round to reading. I always remember the other things people wrapped, because what people threw out, exercise equipment, all sorts of fun things.
Thank you. When you're writing a speech, which comes first, the message or the story?
Often the story comes first, and I think within one story there are numerous messages that can exist, and I saw that in my speech, that I could go from get happy to be grateful to look for the good to finally write a different story. And if you keep working on the message statement and don't just stick with your first one, what might happen, which is what happened for me, when I landed on write a different story, suddenly the fairy tale analogy became a possibility in my speech, and it made my speech so much stronger. Even though the nuts and bolts were exactly the same, I could pepper it in with kind of little moments from fairy tales. So really, if you love that story, dig deep to find the message and get the feedback from your audience members to maybe help you.
Thank you. You mentioned the 3 C's. Can you give an example of commitment?
Commitment for me is when I got messages on LinkedIn and Facebook going, I've picked up my pen, I'm writing my new story, I've just been retrenched, but I'm writing the story that I've changed this. So the commitment you only know after you finish speaking. You can often get it from the applause, but it's from what people come and tell you afterwards, that they remember your message statement and that they're applying it in their life.
Thank you. Would the gift approach be different if you were appearing in person, face to face, actually there in the room?
No, not at all. So it would just mean that you would have maybe been practicing your speech in person at clubs and receiving that feedback, but getting clear on your message, intentionally structuring your story. And if you think about it, I only had one round of virtual contestants from 2020 to watch. Everyone else I was watching had competed virtually, in person. And if you look at those speeches, those stories are intentionally crafted. That message is easy to latch onto. You're not left with too many questions. They tie it together beautifully. So I think it's quite a simple way to look at the way you work on a speech.
Thank you. Your semi-final speech was called The Challenge. Was that the speech that you did at the club level, or was a great read the one you did at the club level?
No, my semi-final speech was the one that gave me the premonition I was going to be world champion. I don't know where it came from, but that speech changed so much from club level to the world semi-finals. Before that, it was called Who's Walking Behind You, and then it changed to The Challenge. But I only wrote a great read after I won district, while I was waiting to hear if I'd made the semi-finals.
Thank you. Is there any online source to script a story?
I would highly recommend Prez Vasilev. He was the 2013 world champion. I bought his compelling storytelling course on prezsays.com. I'll pop it in the chat just now. And it was an incredible resource. I went through all 24 modules. I applied. He's incredibly methodical. His theory of speech writing is incredible and extraordinary. So prezsays.com, Prez Vasilev, go and look at his compelling storytelling course.
Thank you. It sounds as if you did spend an enormous number of hours preparing to become world champion. So real dedication. Any idea how many hours you might have spent?
So I averaged 3 to 4 hours for the last 2 months. I worked 7 months tirelessly on those speeches. I've done research with previous champions and finalists, and it's an average of 1 to 3 hours in the last 3 months that they spend. They speak on average at 40 clubs. They write on average more than 30 versions of their speeches. Their speeches are on average 100 to 110 words a minute. I think only 11% of them ever opt not to get feedback. And of those people who opted not to get feedback, they weren't champions. So it was quite interesting. I've actually been asking them and collating data on it. There's a lot of effort that goes into making the finals, never mind winning.
Thank you. Another question. Did you ever feel overwhelmed or like giving up?
Yes. Yes, and that's also a question I asked all my fellow finalists, and a lot of us feel that way. I can honestly say it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It was so intense, and I kept wondering, why am I doing this? Why am I pushing so hard? But something inside of me was driving me, saying, you're meant to go there, and I didn't know why. I'm still figuring out why it happened. But it was overwhelming, and I did have some dark nights of the soul. And sometimes I would then have to speak at a club, and I would get a private message from someone hearing how the speech had touched them. And I'd go, that's why, keep going.
Well, I'm very glad you did. You must have an enormous amount of feedback from people. How do you pick good feedback from not such good feedback?
I think sometimes intuitively you can see, oh, look, this is not maybe a very accomplished Toastmaster and they're just giving their opinion. But some of it can be very confronting. I can be honest, I had some very tough feedback. But what I started doing, because it was such a new thing to do, I was speaking at 2-3 clubs a day and I would get all this feedback. I started looking for threads. And if in 3 different countries, they were all saying, in my mom's speech, people kept saying, you speak about a book at her funeral, you haven't said what people said about her in the book, we want to know.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I realized you have to fill in the gaps for your audience. So I totally changed my speech to incorporate what was said. I then went and found the book. I cried. I had a whole lot of therapy that went around finding that book. My sister and I and my brother, we connected with my mum. But it was from listening to the feedback. And the first time I got it, I was like, I'm not telling you what was in the book. But when I kept hearing it, I went, that is what my audience wants. So you need to get diverse feedback, and then you can start seeing the themes.
Thank you. How do you choose the stories that you're going to tell about your personal life? Your
I think that's
personal
quite
experience.
Yeah, that's quite intuitive. I am quite an honest person. So I know maybe things I speak about, not everyone would be comfortable to speak about. But you've got to speak about something that's moved you and shifted you, but that you've also healed around. I don't think you can use a speech to try and heal. The healing needs to have happened so that you can find the humor, that you can play with it and not be too raw. But again, and I've said this at a few meetings, I stand corrected, but I actually don't. I think this is the truth. I truly believe that someone could win the world champion of public speaking telling a story of how they learned to boil an egg. If you told that story in an amazing way, if the message was meaningful and people loved listening, you could win. And I mean, Prez Vazilev won by talking about changing a tire. So it doesn't need to be profound. In fact, Mark Brown, 1995 world champion, says your story doesn't have to be sensational. It just needs to be sincere. So it could be something as random as running into a friend at the supermarket and having an embarrassing moment and then getting the message. So I think take the pressure off it being a sensational story and just look for those sincere moments that you enjoy talking about.
Now there's a challenge to win a world championship about how to boil an egg. What determines that your message is clear, strong, and engages your audience? Is it the feedback that you get along the way?
Very much the feedback. And what I've included on my Google form was, what message did you get from this speech? And for a long time, I was getting very conflicting messages. And in those last 10 days, write a different story, write a different story, write a different story. I went, okay, I've now found the way to land my message. So that's why it takes time. And that you're not ever going to have that time for a club speech, but for a contest speech, you have to put that time in and go, this is not about me. this is the message that others need to get. Otherwise, why am I standing up?
And do you run workshops that we could come and join to learn more from you?
I do run a Present with Power workshop, which at this stage I've been running in corporates for many years. So I'm looking at how to open that up and do it in a Toastmasters context. And yeah, I mean, that's why I'm asking people to sign up for my newsletter, because as I'm still finding my feet as world champion, I'm also looking at how I can give back in other ways to the community.
Yes, Nick's just put the link in the chat again.
Thank you.
So, what opportunities have come about through winning the World Championship?
I've been very blessed with work because unlike many world champions, I actually was already a professional speaker. So I've been very fortunate to get a lot of work, a lot of facilitation. I facilitate strategy and positive psychology. I actually literally help people learn how to write a different story. So that's been wonderful, getting booked all around the world. And then the thing I didn't know when you win is all these workshops that you get invited to speak at, and I had to find capacity to do it and write a keynote, which is I worked for 6 weeks trying to come up with what do I want to say now that I've won. And it's been wonderful because I'm getting to see the world from my bedroom. I do look forward to when I can come in person, but it has been extraordinary, and I think it's just the beginning. It really is just the beginning. And as many of my fellow world champions have said now, they just said this, winning it is the start. And by the time you win, you feel like you're finished, but they say, this is the start, get ready. So I don't know what's coming next, but I'm excited.
Well, thank you very, very much for spending time with us today. And I'd like to hand over to Eileen now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And thank you again, Verity. You know, when I listen to the words that you have shared with us, and as I said a few minutes ago, so many of those words, we just hang on to them. You spoke about how we can improve ourselves in public speaking, the determination, the dedication, and 100% commitment that it takes. And you've shared with us your gift, and you are gifted, so gifted yourself, Verity, in being able to get a message across to us. When you spoke about those three things, dedication, determination, and 100% commitment, it wasn't just words. You demonstrated it with your own journey, visiting 42 countries, 200 Toastmasters giving you feedback and taking all of that on board. I love the way you said at the end in the Q&A session that you latched on to when you heard the message 3 times or more from Toastmasters. That was a way to change. Things that will last with me, and I think last with everybody in the room, are those 3-letter words. Rewrite your story. It's incredibly powerful. Your speech is a gift to your audience. Your speech is a gift to your audience. That's not just for people going for world champions. That's for me as a Toastmaster in my next meeting to remember that my speech is a gift for my audience. And the word gift was used so many times. You use the G, the I, the F, and the T. And people will remember that, latch on to it, and from that, remember all of the messages that you have given us. You know, being a Toastmaster is such a gift in itself, because we hear from people like yourself who have such a powerful message to give. And if I'm in business and going on a leadership course or trying to improve my staff so that they can better themselves in leadership or in life, I pay hundreds and thousands of euros to hear what you're after sharing with us today. Thank you so much on behalf of District 71. Thank you, Elizabeth, Jordan, and all of the Zoom team for making this possible. And I can't wait to hear from you. And I bet you everybody in this room is going to be signing up to your newsletter, Verity. Thank you so much. Before we finish off, I am delighted to hand over again to our District 71 Poet Master, Miss Anya O'Neill. Anya.
Thanks very much, Eileen. And it was a great speech there, Verity. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. This poem is called The Flight, and it's a sonnet I wrote about the craft of writing. At tide's full height, there rises a wave of prose. It stands as if by magic, and then it rolls on shore and finds a stretch of parchment woven from fallen leaves, all crushed to become these shoals. I fill my mind with ink, my pen with words. 2 fingers and a thumb take quiet hold. Inside my head, ideas break out like birds and clamour to let their lives unfold. The trap will spring, the skies will break wide open. My wings stretch long, I fly the falling tide. As birds in flight, we make a murmuration. So my saying soars and swarms and glides. At last they land, these shorebirds, on the page, as if this silence were their waiting stage. Thank you very much, everyone. Back to you, Eileen.
Incredible, Anya. What a lovely play with words. My mind with ink and my pen with words. I love that. You entertain us at all of these sessions with your wonderful poetry, and what an addition to District 71 this year. Delighted that you're with us. That's it. We've had wonderful contributions from people in the room today. It's fantastic to see everybody here. Don't forget to sign up to Verity's newsletter. It was totally inspiring to hear from Verity. And thank you, Sue, and thank you, Jenny, and thank you everybody for making today possible. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening. Bye, everyone.